Okay, Gabriel, boy, oh boy, where to start with your R6? Um, got ourselves a bit of a project here. I'm just going to clean the lens here. It's a little hazy. It's not supposed to be. That's better. Okay, let's just go from the top of the list. From the inspection, we have already talked about that your bike needs two tires. So we're not going to talk about them. I've not confirmed the steering bearings yet, as you can see the steering dampener is still on it. But I did notice that on your front brake pads, there's probably 40% life left. But the inside pad on this caliper, I think it looks probably closer to 20%. Now, I don't know for sure. We also know that the master cylinder leaks. We've talked about that. I don't know for sure, but based on the fact that one of the four pads, right, two on this side and two on the other side, based on the fact that the inside pad on this caliper I'm pointing at right now, the inside pad is at 20%, there's two things that are going on here. One, there's something wrong with the caliper itself. One of the pistons is hung up, stuck out, I'm not sure. Or the likely thing is somebody has switched the brake pads and put in a pad that was just thinner. They're all a match, they're all the proper pads, but just one is a little bit thinner, and therefore now it's wearing unevenly. You might not even notice that in terms of braking power, but what we are seeing, or sorry, what I have witnessed and seen is that one pad is 20%, while the others are offering probably 40% life. On the rear brake pads, you've got plenty of life, all is good, nothing to worry about back there. Yeah, we talked about a chain adjustment as well, and we're gonna definitely get on that. There's a little bit of life left, and that's no big deal, but let's deal with the chain adjustment after the discussion of tires and front brake pads, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, rear brake pads, you've probably got about 6% life left, and all is good. But in discussion of the rear brake, we talked about this as well, is this little loop here of extra brake line, which is, yeah. I think literally what has happened is because of this new introduction of Moto Bits, that's the brand name I'm not making up that name, Moto Bits it's called, and the rear sets, or the front pegs in this case, being moved back, the master cylinder wasn't supposed to be mounted vertically. It's actually horizontal. And it actually resides down here, and the reservoir would be somewhere where this now mount for, oh, it's loose, mount for your Olin suspension was. So because it's all been moved back, that cable that used to come out, or that brake line that used to come out this far has now been spooled back here. Instead of changing it, they just looped it and is what it is. So we've talked about this as well. I think that you should go back to your factory foot pegs. And in discussion with that foot pegs, I'll just get down here. These are, as you know, the passenger pegs for your bike, and they would, based on this custom-made adapter plate, attach basically up inside that dark hole right up in here. Now, if I pan back here a little bit and I just sort of hold it up here, you can see that there's literally a traffic jam happening. I've only got one hand. Sorry, I got to do this. Turn up the peg. That if we attach the passenger pegs to where they should be, there's less than a shoe space between the passenger peg and the rider's peg on these controls. So that's why I think these controls should be moved forward so that there's a greater distance between the passenger peg here and the rider's peg. Now, this adapter plate, nice work, but the way that these passenger pegs were supposed to be attached was this plate was in here, and the bolts would come from the top. So you remove the seat and the bolts go down, and they would screw into just this lower half right here. And that's actually why the bolts stick out on the back here. They're too long because their length was originally made to go through the frame here and screw into, thus moving the passenger pegs back enough to make accommodations for a passenger's toes hanging off the front, or hanging off the passenger pegs, and your heel. So you would be on your toes on this peg, and your heel would be back here. Still pretty close in my opinion. I still think you should switch back to stock, but that's how these are supposed to be attached. So let me know if you want me to do that. So basically disassemble this extra plate and put the passenger pegs back up into the bike the way they're supposed to be done. And I think that's everything about the pegs. So we'll talk about exhaust now because it's right here. Exhaust. On my desk here, I've lined up all the exhaust that we talked about. This is your shorty that you brought. It's made by Delcovic. And then you've got this resonator, which if you want to upset the neighbors and get the attention of the police and potentially some people on the ISS, this is the pipe for you. But if you don't, then I recommend any one of the three that I have here. Now, obviously, they are all much taller and offer different variances of sound quality. This is probably something that you would want to choose. So I'm just going to arbitrarily grab your pipe and I'm going to bring it over to your bike. And I'm just going to hold this up to where approximately it would have gone. And you can clearly see down here that there's obviously something missing. It's called a mid pipe. So the way that your exhaust is assembled is there are four headers that come out the engine. They meet down here under the middle. Usually they're introduced to something called a catalytic converter, but let's just ignore the cat right now and just talk about that. The four pipes come down into one, and then that one comes up to here. And then about where my hand is, there's either an open pipe or a flange or something so that the pipe, the muffler, would be able to attach to the bike and thus be in line with the rear of the bike. Like it would be somewhere here, high mount would be somewhere up there, but you could tell that there's a huge gap between where the pipe would have been and would have attached. We need this mid pipe for any one of the exhausts I have on the desk or even the one that you've provided to actually get on that bike. Until then, your only two choices, and please leave the people on the ISS alone. They've got enough work to do up there in outer space. Don't go with this one. Stick with the one that you got on the bike right now. We need that mid pipe to complete the exhaust project. Okay, so that's exhaust. Let me get back to the list. The list says swap levers, rear brake. Oh yeah, talked about rear brake, talked about exhaust, talked about passenger bags, the bars, handlebars. Yes, okay. The handlebars, we talked about this when you were here. These are made by Woodcraft, very good quality product. You should be able to get some money for them, even though they've got a little bit of wear and tear from use. But in order to put these bars back up where they belong, you can clearly see where the original factory clip-ons would have gone. This is what you will need to stop the traffic jam of pinching your thumb between the bar and the gas tank and your knuckles in the headlight. That sweeping motion can only be fixed by going back to stock. So you're going to have to check Marketplace. You're going to have to check Facebook. Marketplace, eBay, Craigslist, Kijiji, have a look around. These are difficult to find. They're not completely obsolete, but they're difficult to find, and you may have to pay a price to get them, full stop. But somebody out there has got them, and that can be done. All right, there is okay, brake oil, chain, we talked about that. GP shifting. Okay, GP shifting. The GP shifting, I said, yes, is very easy to swap back, but I think I wasn't clear and it's totally my fault. It is easy to swap back to just flip this around so that you don't have GP shifting. But in order for that to happen, this part of the shifter would have to be facing down at the 6 o'clock position thereabouts. And the problem with that is if you look at the traffic jam here, your overflow bottle is in the way. So even if I could flip it around, it's not going to technically fit. The shifter has to go back through this hole, back the way I described to you when you were here. And that means that your original shifter linkages and foot peg setup should be reintroduced to bring this back to street use or normal use. So regrettably, I'm unable to flip that too because of that virtual traffic jam. And the tires, I mentioned the I mentioned the S21s, the Bridgestones. Front is $228. Sorry, The rear is 228. The front is 204. So about $500 ish or so for tires, somewhere in that ballpark, maybe a little under, but it's going to be around there. And that's kind of where we are at. That's just the inspection. Haven't done any work and won't until I get a green light from you. Oh, the oil. Okay. I checked your oil, and I'm going to pull out this dipstick here again, get this rag here. I pulled out the dipstick and checked the oil. It is ridiculously clean, like just changed clean. So I don't think you need an oil change. However, the oil is overfilled and it smells funny. I know I can't do that on video, but there you can see it's well over full. I'm going to say right up to the threads, like right up to where you screw it in is where the oil dips into. I'll wipe this clean again and we'll do another quick check here. This is a long video, I'm terribly sorry. Okay, so there it is dry. We're going to dip in there. Pull it again. Yeah. Yeah, it's overfull. Not terribly, but it's overfull. And it smells funny. And what I mean by that is it doesn't smell like motorcycle oil to me. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's just how it smells. Is this empty? No, it's plugged in. It's loose, but it's plugged in. Okay. All right, sir. I got to cut this video off because it's way too long, but that is all the news that I have for yous. Put this bike back down. Yeah, we know that this is leaking. We talked about this. We really need to and want to replace this because leaking here. You can see where the dog was chewing on it, which is bad dog, very bad dog. Okay, call me.